want to bring in Rajat Sethi into this conversation. Rajat Sethi, the RJD would have us believe that this 19% will weigh over and, compensate for that extra 4% that you are getting in terms of the woman vote. Do you concur?
Preeti, wishes can be horses till tomorrow morning, and we can all be riding it. But there is no point doing a guess game. We can all have a nice sleep and get up early in the morning so that we can all be in the studio and deliberate over it. But having said that, let us only go and understand what are the fundamental things which don't change. First thing that doesn't change, and it has been tested by several researchers, is that higher voter turnout is necessarily anti-incumbency. There is absolutely no scientific data to say that higher polling percentage is necessarily because of anti-incumbency. So we should not even delve on that question. It is as good as the other way around it is. So that is point number one. And several people around the world have looked at various demographies and kept this. Second thing, you're trying to make a claim around youth. And this is again going by Access My India data. What we have understood is that yes, youth and the first time voters, just like in 2024 election, the youth, the first time voters, this age bracket between 18 and 29 have not seen UPA years. They've not seen Lalu years. They have just heard about it. And it just has gone beyond their even realm of imagination, forget about a lived experience. And this is where they don't understand what a Lalu Raj or what an RJD Raj is going to look like. Apparently, this is where they've gone in with a promise that Tejashwi has brought into the table, that he will give jobs. And I think job remains an issue number one, agenda number one for everybody who's coming out of school, coming out of college. And I believe they have been swayed and they've been successfully fallen for that narrative.
It's interesting, Rajat. We are talking about unemployed and employed youth, and that's where, again, Tejashwi is scoring to NDA. And I'll ask the producers to now play that on our big screen here. When we look at this data, let's take a look at this data, which is now again being projected by Access by India. In terms of the unemployed youth, Mahagathbandhan is likely to get around 49%. Just look at this data. 49% that's coming from the unemployed youth. Does it mean that they believe in what all of us were questioning, that from where will Tejashwi Yadav get that 2.5 crore government jobs? That was the big question that was being asked by opposition and by all of us, that have you made that calculation? Tejashwi, did you do that calculation? I'd asked him myself in that interview that I did. So there is that gap of 15% where the unemployed youth are believing that Tejashwi Yadav perhaps will be able to deliver that number. Again, if you look at the students, Tejashwi is scoring a significant number, 15% gap between the NDA and the Mahagathbandhan in that category as well. But if you move towards the skilled laborers, skilled professionals, and even the labor, that's again the gap. So overall, if we were to look at it, Preeti, and you'll put out the other set of graphics, that it's becoming clear that in among the youth, Tejashwi Yadav's Mahagathbandhan have more traction. I did meet a number of youth from the Bhumiyar community. It is always believed that the upper caste will not give Tejashwi Yadav a chance. They were ready to believe his promise of 2.5 crore government jobs. Just look at this number again. We have been saying, is Bihar a pro-incumbent state? Is Bihar a state that believes in status quo-ish? We do not believe in too many changes. There is a state which gave 15 years to Lalu Yadav, 20 years to Nitish Kumar. Just look at this. 1967 onwards, incumbent Congress government voted out. That is the percent, only 7%. 1980, you have the Janata Party government voted out 6.8%. 1990, that is when the era of stability in many ways begins in Bihar, when Lalu Yadav's tenure begins and the tenure of Janata Dal. Preeti, over to you. The big numbers again on Bihar's per capita income.
Right. It's interesting, viewers, and we're going to hark back. So Maria just gave you, the data points in terms of whether a surge in voter turnout really means a pro-incumbency or anti-incumbency. But right before that, with what we've been discussing, the Mahila vote and the youth vote, it's a double-edged sword this time. The MOI factor has changed, cliche stand into Mahila and youth. And if the Mahila edge belongs and is standing besides the NDA as per projected data, and the youth with where it comes down to the Mahagathbandhan. The beauty of our election intelligence dashboard is that in terms of data slicing, it can give us greater context. We're talking about a state where 60% of Bihar makes less than 6,000 rupees a month. So just chew on the fact that if a woman per household has been given 10,000 rupees, what that could actually mean. But that woman who makes that 10,000 rupees is also a mother of an unemployed youth. Just look at the per capita income and you'd understand, why there are layers between layers when it comes down to this election. Income below 40,000 per annum, 81 seats out of 243 seats. The income on these seats largely stands at 40,000 rupees per annum per household. Last time around, NDA 153 out of those seats, MGB just 27. Income between 40 to 50,000, 113 seats. Last time NDA 150 and the MJB 57. High 49 seats where income above 50,000 per annum, 19 and 30. Now look at this in context, viewers, where you have the NDA where the income is below 40,000 rupees. So there is a trust factor. So will that 10,000 rupee play in Sajjan Kumar, which has been given to the Mahila, or will the restive or the restless youth vote matter and count more?
Preeti, if you go by the numbers, certainly the most poor segment, as the data also shows, be it about the Mahadalits, be it about the EBCs, right? They have been a constituency nurtured by Nitish Kumar. So this is one. So directional clarity, as your political intelligence data shows, is there in favor of the incumbent when it caters to the lowest economic strata, right? Two, will the 10,000 scheme, Jivka Didi scheme will turn into a positive momentum for incumbent or not? Certainly it is going, because mind it is not one of the scheme, because it has a background, it has a trajectory. Starting from 2006, within 1 year of coming to power, you start having multiple policy outreach to the women, be it about the local body election seats being reserved to the extent of 50%, in police constabulary 35%, and then you have to the girls' school children, and thereby continuation of all sort of thing, coupled with the perception that law and plank is better.
That the Mahila vote will cut through the restless youth factor. And that would mean a clear edge to the NDA if we look at cumulative data points that we are picking up, correct?
Precisely, because the gap you see on the gender plank outweighs the gap on the youth plank. Even if we go by Axis My India data, right? It overweighs, and the category of Mahila is way more than that of youth, right? They are 50% of the electorate, and you have 4% edge among the 50% of the electorate. Certainly it outweighs in terms of the scale the youth factor. So even if Mahagathbandhan, going by this data, is ahead in terms of youth.
But I tend to agree with that. But Mario, I want to bring you in because it's interesting, and we'll bring in Rajat and Javed as well. But when you just hark back to on-ground experience, I actually met a couple where the husband, who is a migrant worker, came back from his village, and he says कि हम नहीं जाएंगे इस बार, पलटू कुमार हैं, कभी इधर कभी उधर, इस बार हम MGB, हमको नहीं पसंद. The wife, who was agreeing with him on every point, turned around and said, क्यों नहीं जाएंगे? So you can sense it on ground.
Yes. But again, as we have been saying, Preeti, there is that counterbalance, and that is the reason why, despite the castes groups very much almost defined, if we look at the caste arithmetics, it's this gender play which is making this election perhaps more interesting, which is also leading to this, what is being seen as a close contest, and a very, very close contest. Javed Saab, the fact is that Nitish Kumar has nurtured this constituency, which we call the women of Bihar. And the youth, when we look at the numbers, the unemployed youth going with Tejashwi's promise of, 2.5 crore government jobs, he did reach out to the Jivika Didis with that promise of 30,000 rupees per month, and also saying that their job will become permanent. But it appears that women are still of the opinion that one in hand is better than two in bush, because that's more of a promise. They are beneficiaries of Nitish Kumar's schemes, which began way back in 2006. So this 10,000 rupees is more like a top-up, more like, which I say that, you know, it's almost like trying to do away with the fatigue around Nitish Kumar's aura and persona, rather than being seen as a freebie. I don't call it a freebie.
Well, Maria, you're spot on as far as the women voters are concerned. Yes, they see in Nitish Kumar somebody who has protected their interests, who has worked consistently. In his first term, he provided cycles for young school children. Then he banned then came in the liquor prohibition, and now comes in the issue of rupees 10,000. To say that 10,000 was not a factor is living in denial. And you know, when money in hand as against something that you may have promised, which may or may not come true, it's anybody's guess.
I mean, we are an eyewitness to that. We have seen women who had received 10,000 rupees and a few days later they had gone and bought goats. They were running this little thela, so it was income generating, Rajat Sethi. That's where I think Tejashwi Yadav, despite his promises and outreach to women, and I've been speaking to the RJD war room people, they were of the opinion that there was a lot of outreach which was carried out to the women of Bihar. That seems to be not translating as much.
So there is, you know, the politicians are facing this hangover of Maharashtra. You know, the way the electoral field was swept away under their feet, and they still are trying to, you know, still come out of that shock. And I believe this is where preemptively Tejashwi and the Congress party thought of making outreaches. They tried doing a post facto commitment that, yes, we will give you 3 times what has been given. But the similar thing was done even by the Congress, didn't work out. But also look at the flip point. When, you know, 2.5 crore jobs was promised by Tejashwi, even the NDA had to come about and say that we will also give you 1 crore. Even that didn't have an impact. My simple point is that any post facto, once somebody takes the lead in asserting and setting the agenda, that sticks with that entity, no matter how many times the other ones wants to do a catch-up.
Rajat, you're right. No, it's a constituency which has been cultivated, especially where Bihar is concerned, by Nitish Kumar. And a lot of women that we did meet also had that affinity where, you know, we can now call it the Nemo effect, where Prime Minister Modi is concerned. But Rajat, you know, look at that 19%, because we are trying to juxtapose the woman vote, which clearly is working for the NDA, and the youth vote, which, as projected by, you know, Access My India, between 18 to 29, most of them, a lot of them first-time voters, which there's a 19% gap in favor, as projected, for the Mahagathbandhan. In all of this, Rajat, even though, you know, I know you're not a big fan of Prashant Kishore, he's been given a total vote share of 4%. But the micro data in that, with what Pradeep actually, touched on, that 3.5% is actually pulling away the youth upper caste vote. Would you think that could also be a deterrent?
100%. There is no doubt about it. See, pick the issue on which Prashant Kishore actually hit the streets. The singular issue was BPSC issue. You know, when BPSC students were protesting on the streets, he tried to champion that cause. So he was seen somewhere there. So whatever little vote share that Prashant Kishore is able to attract is this upper caste youth, which is not getting employed, is desperate to climb up the economic ladder, and that desperation is creating that pull.
And the youth, Rajat, that would have never voted for the RJD, but has found an option today in a Prashant Kishore.
So this is the reason why BJP was also very wary of Prashant Kishore, and while Prashant Kishore was attacking Samrat Chaudhary and the BJP wasn't attacking with the same vigor to Prashant Kishore, because if you attack PK more and more, he becomes a potent third front and takes away more votes, more seats, or more votes out of the NDA, which doesn't serve the purpose of the NDA. And this was a singular reason why BJP played it low and allowed the megaphones of both the RJD on one side and Congress on one side and Narendra Modi on the other side to occupy the electoral space and let it drown out. And this is where Prashant Kishore and Jan Suraj wasn't seen in the last 10-15 days.
Maria's going to take some more graphics, but